It is finally time to find out who has the most power in the UFC and who is the most powerful fighter on the entire roster. I'm going to go through all of the people that I feel like need to be a part of this conversation in this video today. In a tier list, I've got them all hidden around the perimeter of the screen here, and I'm going to slowly reveal them to you guys and place them where I believe they belong, S through F, and hopefully we'll have some kind of accurate depiction of how much power each guy has in comparison to other people. Now, I know there are also going to be some biases here towards the heavier weight classes, because that's just how it's going to be. The heavier weight classes are going to be somewhat skewed towards the upper divisions, but there are some fighters that are hitting like people 2 weight classes above them, and hopefully this tier list video will show that by the end. But there are so many fighters to get through, I've really got to rush. Moving on with number 1, I'm just going to pluck someone at random, Yazinio Rosenstrike. Okay, nice and easy. I feel like Yazinio Rosenstrike belongs in the A tier section of this video. He has got good power for a heavyweight, but he does not quite have that S tier power that I'm looking for. He's got good power, he's able to put people down in the heavyweight division, which shows that he has good power, and he's also doing that whilst being not the biggest heavyweight himself. Like, he one-punch KO'd Uriah Hall. I know other people have done that as well, but other powerful people have been able to do that to Uriah Hall, and some recent people have not been able to switch off Uriah Hall, like Tom Aspinall tried to do it, Tanner Bosa failed as well recently, also Chase Sherman failed to do it as well, so he's clearly got good power. I'm not willing to put him in the S tier, but Yazinio Rosenstrike, A tier for power. Moving on to someone else who is Robert Whittaker. I'm putting him in the B tier. He's got good power. He doesn't quite have that one-hitter quitter, but then again, he doesn't really swing like that either. He's more of a head kicker, is Robert Whittaker. But when he does swing and land with great shots, I know it wasn't really accurately displayed against Kelvin Gastelum, but that was Kelvin Gastelum, so people's power is a little bit hard to measure on a man with the head of Kelvin Gastelum, but either way, I feel like Robert Whittaker belongs in the B tier. Maybe he is quite far away from the power of Yazinio Rosenstrike, but he definitely belongs in the B tier. You'll see once I start setting up who's in these other tiers. There might be some jumps between the tiers, but definitely one below Yazinio Rosenstrike. He's got good power, but he's not got that one-hitter quitter that Yazinio has, but he has got knockdown power. He's able to finish guys in his career as well, but with the hands, although he's a big guy in the middleweight division, I'm not willing to put him in the A tier section. B tier for Robert Whittaker. Good power, nothing crazy, able to finish fights with his hands in the middleweight division. Moving on to someone else who is Stephen Thompson. I know this might seem weird because Stephen Thompson finished Robert Whittaker with strikes. I'm putting him 1 tier below Robert Whittaker in terms of just raw power. I don't think Stephen Thompson has the power like a guy like Robert Whittaker does. Maybe that's because he's in a lower division, and maybe if Stephen Thompson was an 185-pounder and built himself into that weight class, he could have more power than Robert Whittaker. But as it stands right now, I feel like Stephen Thompson's power is somewhat decreasing in his age, and I know that he's kept up other things like technique, and his chin's holding up really well, and his fight IQ is amazing. But one thing that does seem to be fading in Stephen Thompson's career is a little bit of that power that he used to have against other contenders in the division. Now, maybe he was just taking on older guys who it was just their time to go because he was just so much better than them at striking, but I don't feel like he has that crazy power that other people do in his division, and I feel like I'm going to have to put him in the C tier section of this video. Stephen Thompson, good hands. Guys kind of have to be rushing into him for him to do anything with his punches, and I like Stephen Thompson at C tier in this video. Moving on to someone else who is Jing Liang. Now, I'm going to put Jing Liang in the B tier section here next to Robert Whittaker. I feel like this man has really great power, and definitely more power than Stephen Thompson, but quite a similar level of Robert Whittaker, because maybe if he moved up to middleweight, that power does not stay the same. Either way, I'm burping, that's how excited I am. Jing Liang has got some really ridiculous power in the welterweight division. It's been on display time and time again. He's got multiple KOs in the UFC, multiple of them in the first round as well, and after his last win against Santiago Ponzinibbio, you can say what you want about layoff. It takes something to land that kind of shot with the amount of vicious intent that Jing Liang landed it with. The guy's got ridiculous power for his weight class. I'm putting him at the same level as Robert Whittaker. Moving on to someone else who is Cody Garbrandt. I'm putting him in the D tier section. Not quite big enough to hang with the big boys in the welterweight, middleweights and above divisions, but for his division, very great power. So I'm putting him in the D tier list. Just because you're at D or F does not mean you do not have power. I feel like sometimes when you're on a power discussion video and you're a bantamweight or a flyweight, that should be enough of a compliment in itself. The fact that Cody Garbrandt can be 145 pounds come fight night and still be on this list with the other names that are on this list and need to be mentioned in this video just shows the level of power that he has. So I'm putting him at D tier. He's got good crack in his hands. He can sleep some guys, but they seem to be a little bit older, like Rafael Assunção has had some damaging fights recently. Marlon Moraes dropped him, and then Cody Garbrandt got a big KO. Good power for Cody Garbrandt. Not quite enough to overtake some of the welterweights, but maybe he can overtake some of the featherweights, and you'll see that as this video goes on. Cody Garbrandt at D tier. He should be happy to even be in the video. Moving on. Who else? Gilbert Burns. I'm going to put Gilbert Burns. I'm going to put him also at C tier. Now, he may be a little bit higher up the C tier section than Stephen Thompson is, but he is still in C tier in my opinion. I don't think he has ridiculous power like is suggested with some of his fights. Like you saw, Vicente Luque was able to completely destroy Tyron Woodley in the first round with TKO ability, but Gilbert Burns, not so much. Now, can he KO some lightweights? Yes, I'm sure Stephen Thompson could KO some lightweights with one punch as well, if he had a weight advantage over them. But Gilbert Burns, since moving up to the welterweight division, maybe he's got a tad more power than Thompson, but he still falls under that same range in my opinion. He's got to land the perfect shot if he's going to put you down, and other than that, guys typically seem to be able to take his shots. Now, I know he hit Oosman with a great shot. I think it's more to do with his speed. People are really shocked about how fast he can land these shots on them, but I think he's got to go in C tier. Not ridiculous power. He hardly KOs welterweights at this point. I know he KO'd Damian Maia, but it was a TKO finish. You get my point. Gilbert Burns at C tier. Moving on to someone else who is Jeremy Lilheaven Stevens. Is also going in C tier. Okay? And this is what I'm talking to you guys about when I'm talking about guys who literally over-accomplished themselves. Jeremy Stevens, he's the hardest hitting 145 right here. Right here. When he knocks people out, they don't fucking move. When he pushes people, they fucking move. And they move off the fucking card as well because they can't take it anymore. Anyone who can KO someone with a push deserves to be at C tier. I think Jeremy Stevens, just raw punch for punch power, can hang with a guy like Gilbert Burns in terms of how he lands those shots. I believe he may be the only person to date to really put out RDA. I know that RDA got put out by Eddie Alvarez, but it really wasn't him getting put out by Eddie Alvarez. Let's be real. Jeremy Stevens, despite being a lower weight class, if he lands on that chin, like even against Josh Emmett, Emmett gave Stevens everything he had. Stevens took it. Stevens gave Emmett everything he had. Emmett couldn't take it. Stevens is the man. I'm putting him at C tier. He's the real hardest in 145er right here. Moving on to someone else who is Alexander Volkonovsky. Now, I'm going to have to put him at F tier, okay? And this is not me being mean to Alexander Volkonovsky. He has got some power in his hands. You know what? I might have to put him at D tier later on, but we're going to make some shimmies around, I'm sure, by the end of the video, once I tell where everyone else is. Alexander Volkonovsky at F tier. Didn't seem to have that much power. Really doesn't put people down too often. He has some TKO finishes in his career, but it's often when Chad Mendes gasses out after going for Alexander Volkonovsky. Then Volko sort of takes over and he actually landed a body shot against Chad Mendes. Doesn't seem to have that KO ability. Like, for example, we've seen guys that that Max Holloway has taken on where they've hit him and he's been rocked by them. Like Brian Ortega was able to rock Max Holloway at one point in their fight. And you've got in his other fight with Dustin Poirier. Poirier was able to rock Max Holloway at one point. I feel like Alexander Volkonovsky does not quite have that ridiculous power that he needs. A little bit more of a technique guy. But even still, he's on the list at F tier. Maybe I'll move him around the Garbrandt area. But until then, I'm not too sure if... Does Alexander Volkonovsky one-punch KO into an absolute crumple on the ground Rafael Assunção? I'm not too sure. I'm putting him at F tier. We'll see by the end of the video where he ends up. Moving on to someone else who is Glover Teixeira. Right then. I think I'm going to have to put him here. The power's come down with his age. He used to have some good power in his hands. Of course, he has that KO over Rashad Evans and some other brutal KOs throughout his career. I feel like it's come down a little bit. He seems to rely more on his pressure and pace nowadays. Sure, he can knock some people down if he lands the perfect shot. I think he actually knocked down Anthony Smith at one point early in their fight, but Smith was able to recover. He's got good hands. Power seems to be a little bit fading in his old age. But maybe if this was Glover Teixeira 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I might put him at A tier. But even still, I don't know. He might be at the top of B tier out of all of these people that are there so far. But I feel like he just doesn't hit as hard as some of the other guys in his light heavyweight division. And even as hard as some middleweights as well. I feel like Glover Teixeira belongs at B tier. Good power, just nothing crazy for his division. And even at middleweight, I don't think there'd be anything crazy to his division. And I feel like he's the same size as some middleweights as well. Moving on up the card to Jon Jones. Why am I saying the card? There's no card. I'm putting Jon Jones at C tier. I think Jeremy Stephens has more power than Jon Jones. And I'm not joking, because Jon Jones, of course, the testosterone levels are really reduced after years of substance abuse in his career. But he doesn't take anything, does he, Joe Rogan? You fucking idiot chimp. It's all good. I'm not talking about Jon Jones. I'm talking about Joe Rogan. I'm talking about Joe Rogan, the idiot chimp, who thinks that Jon Jones is only on dick pills. That's stupidity. Either way, it's not about that, okay? It's about Jon Jones. I feel like his power has never been there. He can flying knee people, they're fine. He can kick people in the head, they're reasonably fine. He can punch people with a perfect shot straight on the chin, they're pretty fine. All the time, like constantly, they're absolutely fine on all circumstances, whatever Jon Jones throws at them. Testosterone levels of an Asian woman. Not my words, the words online. Jon Jones at C tier, good power, but not really. Moving on. That's a real ego booster for Jeremy Stephens. To who else? Michael Chandler. I think I'm going to have to put Michael Chandler in here as well. I really do. I think he's as explosive as Gilbert Burns and Jeremy Stephens. And also, probably hits as hard as Stephen Thompson, even if he isn't as explosive, because Thompson's got that size advantage over him. I feel like Michael Chandler could really do some work up a weight class in the welterweight division. I'm sure he'd have knockdown power, at least, in the welterweight division, which kind of puts him in the Wonderboy and Gilbert Burns bracket. I like Michael Chandler here. I feel like but I think he belongs at C tier. He's got crazy power. He put out Dan Hooker when Dustin Poirier couldn't do that for 5 rounds, when Dan Hooker was literally spent with no energy in the later rounds of that fight. Something needs to be said about that. Michael Chandler at C tier. It stands for Chandler. Moving on to someone else. It's Paulo Costa. Got that chimp comment. My fucking career flashed before my eyes. Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa. You know what? I'm putting him at B tier. But I'm not happy about it. Okay? I feel like Paulo Costa has not overrated power. Not overrated power. He has got power in his hands. But who has he KO'd? Because Uriah Hall, it was a cumulative damage that put down Uriah Hall. Couple of body shots, then a couple of uppercuts. Like, it was a lot of shots that landed on Uriah Hall to eventually TKO him. Then he goes out there against Johnny Hendricks. Yeah, it was a TKO finish as well. Hendricks is fighting for a single leg at the end. Like, I'm not really seeing Paulo Costa just switch the lights off like maybe he was on the regional scene. And for his size, I feel like it's not about his power. It's about the power that he can continue to have. Okay? So whereas Robert Whittaker, maybe on... Who's a good example? Jeremy Stephens would land one big punch and it would have ridiculous power. Paulo Costa would land one good punch, but his second and third punch would have the same kept level of power as the first one. So it's just an overwhelming barrage of power rather than one-shot power. I don't think he has that. I'm putting Paulo Costa at B tier. Moving on to someone else who is Leon Edwards. Right, well, I feel like I've got to put Leon Edwards at C tier here. I think he belongs exactly at the same point as Wonderboy. Good tall guy for the division, a big guy as well. Sure, he probably has more pound-for-pound power than Jeremy Stephens, but actually, I'm not too sure. Lilheaven Stephens can hit real hard when he pushes people, they fucking move. I'll say that so many times this video. Leon Edwards belongs at C tier with Wonderboy. I feel like he's kind of like the white Wonderboy without as much footwork, but maybe with a bit more range. I don't know. I feel like Wonderboy and him are around similar levels. Moving on. Anyway, what's next? Israel Adesanya. I'm putting Israel Adesanya at B tier. I think he's around this level. I think he is around the level of his compadres, Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa. Israel Adesanya's got some power in his hands. Now, is that to do with the breast that he randomly grew in the middle of his 30s? Maybe. Because before, he couldn't finish anyone. But I'm judging it off of right now, who has good power. and he rocked Jan Blachowicz for a second. He did. I know that Jan Blachowicz won that fight and outstruck Israel Adesanya, but he caught him, and Jan Blachowicz seemed a little bit rattled. That's upper division power that's been proven in Israel Adesanya's career. Jan Blachowicz had to respect the power of Israel Adesanya, despite having a bit of a weight advantage. So that does say something about Israel Adesanya's power. He put down Paulo Costa. He put out Robert Whittaker. He's put out guys before. He was dropping Kelvin Gastelum, which is kind of almost enough for S tier, to be honest with you guys. Israel Adesanya has good power since that breast grew on his chest. Moving on to someone else, who is Uriah Hall. Again, I'm putting Uriah Hall at B tier here. Where can I get some other tiers? We're going to get some other tiers in a second, but Uriah Hall, I think, belongs at B tier as well. He doesn't have crazy power. Can he put people away? Yes, but they're chinny people. Krzysztof Jotko, he's been KO'd. I think he got KO'd the fight before he fought Uriah Hall as well. Don't get me wrong, good power on Uriah Hall. I mean, he's got such good power, he KO'd Chris Weidman without throwing a fucking punch. Either way, I feel like Uriah Hall belongs at the same level of Israel Adesanya. Nothing too crazy. Can he put you down? Yeah, he can put you down. He can put you down. He's not going to sleep you in a fucking crumpled mess on the ground anymore like he maybe would in his earlier career. But right now, I think he belongs at B tier. There's a wide range of all of these tiers. Moving on. For the love of God, give me someone who's not at B. Where can I find someone? Right here. Conor McGregor. Oh, C tier. I feel like Conor McGregor's at C tier. He's got great power. I think pound for pound, he probably hits about as hard as some of these guys here. Jeremy Stephens, Michael Chandler, Gilbert Burns, Stephen Thompson, Leon Edwards. He's got good power in his hands. In that first round, when it's all systems go, McGregor has amazing power in his hands. Now, I know we've seen him not be able to finish Dustin Poirier in the second round of a fight, but in that first round, if you don't do something to Conor McGregor to take him away from the stand-up realm of the fight, he will land that punch and it will be beautiful to witness and he will sleep you. And he's done that many times at featherweight. His power translated over to lightweight as well. Maybe not as much as it was at featherweight, but still I guess you could say the same thing to Jeremy Stephens. I doubt he's going to fold people completely dead in the lightweight division like McGregor can't do. So I think they're around that same level. Ridiculously hard-hitting featherweights that put people away with one punch. Moving up to lightweight, we're going to have some knockdown power. McGregor belongs at C tier. What do you know? C for McGregor. Or Conor, because McGregor starts with a fucking M, you idiot. Moving on to someone else. Who is it? Chris Dalkows. I'm putting Chris Dalkows at A tier. Finally, someone who's not in B or C. Fucking hell. Either way, A tier. Dude's got fucking thunder in his hands. I don't care what people say about his loose skin. I don't care. He's got ridiculous power in his hands. Like, when he lands on these heavyweights, they go down. And it's not about, like, can you land a shot and maybe I'll go jab for jab with Chris Dalkows. He lands one of those hooks on your chin. It's the beginning of the end or it is the end. And I feel like he's shown that so far in his heavyweight career. Also, there is some fucking big value points for him, again, being an undersized heavyweight. Maybe there are some heavyweights on the roster that could be in B tier, in all honesty. But for A tier, both these guys, undersized heavyweights, maybe shouldn't even be in that division, arguably should be light heavyweights, but still they're putting people to sleep in the heavyweight division. I think they both belong around that same area. I think if Dalkows landed a check hook on Arlovsky, he would go down similar to the way he did against Rosenstrike. Both belong at A tier. Moving on to someone else who is Yuri Prohaska. I'm putting him at A tier as well. I really am. I know that this is weird because he hasn't KO'd heavyweights, but the guy lands on people's 93% finishing rate, and like nearly all of them are TKOs or KOs, like brutal KOs as well. Flattens people out cold with shots. Oosman doesn't even get dropped, ever. Never gets dropped. Rakic was landing head kicks on him, and it was nothing to him. Rakic was pull countering clean on the chin, and Rakic is a 6'5", big light heavyweight, and nothing was happening. Prochazka goes out there, lands when he needs to, and down goes Oosman. I think he's got ridiculous power in his hands. Might be something to do with that 80-inch reach, or just the fact that he's a ridiculous athlete anyway, but I think if he landed on some of these heavyweights, like Alexei Olenek and like Andrei Arlovsky, he would have similar results to Yazinio Rosenstrike and Chase Sherman, or whatever his name is, Chris Dalkows. Yuri Prohaska belongs at A tier, maybe in a lower part of A tier. Maybe I should do something like this with him and bump up some of these other guys, but I feel like he belongs in A tier with these other guys that I've previously mentioned. Moving on to Marvin Vettori. Fuck you, Marvin. Where do I put Marvin? Ugh, fuck off for a second, you cunt. Give me a second to figure out where I put Marvin. Moving on to someone else. Stipe Miocic. Alright, I'm putting him at A tier as well. I think he's got similar level to power to these other guys. He can land on a guy who's maybe known for being chinny. I mean, he KO'd Arlovski in the first round. He KO'd Alistair Overeem in the first round when it took Rosenstrike 5 to land that blow. I like Stipe Miocic's power. I think it belongs at A tier. Sure, he doesn't have that level of power like Ngannou, and you know he's going to be S tier. You knew when you clicked the video. Stipe Miocic at A tier, not quite that ridiculous power that the other guys in his division have, but definitely a hard-hitting heavyweight, and if he was a light heavyweight, he'd be one of the hardest hitters in the division as well. Definitely Stipe Miocic, I mean, he's TKO'd DC, hard to do, and Jon Jones had to do it with a head kick, and whilst being on roids that he got a no contest for on that same contest. Either way, Stipe Miocic has got power in his hands. He's got power in general. S tier or A tier power for Stipe Miocic. Moving on to someone else who is Vicente Luque. B tier power. I'm putting him up there with the rest. I'm putting him up there with some of these middleweights. I think the dude's got ridiculous power in his hands. Anvils for fists, anvils for a head, which maybe makes it a little bit easier to land those power shots when you know for a fact that no one's going to have the ability to KO you whatsoever because Tyron Woodley landed a punch behind his head and it basically did nothing to him other than made his legs go funny for a second. Like, Tyron Woodley's overhand to the back of Luque's head did about as much as a jab does to Kevin Lee. Like, and this isn't even about chins. Let's get back to the topic at hand, but that's where Kevin Lee fits into it, I guess. Vicente Luque. Crazy power in his hands, one-punch knockout power, he one-punch KO'd Bilal Muhammad, ridiculous power in his hands, puts away a lot of his opponents, put away Randy Brown, put away Brian Barberina at the end of their fight, put away Nico Price, kind of, but still, put away Nico Price in the first fight as well, but by submission, but he cracked him beforehand. It just seems like when Luque lands, there's problems, and I think that power could translate into the middleweight division. I think if Luque lands a lead hook on Krzysztof Jotko as he rushes in the same way Uriah Hall did, Jotko's probably going to go down to that shot. I'm going with Luque at B tier, moving on to someone else who is Justin the Hoyloid Gaethje. Where the fuck off? I'm sick of these guys. Let me just figure out. They can go for a second. I'll get to them in a second, the fucking pasty fuckers. Jared Cannonier, A tier, power. I think he's the hardest hitting middleweight. I think he's harder hitting than some light heavyweights. I think he belongs at A tier. In all honesty, Jared Cannonier has ridiculous power, and listen, he's KO'd heavyweights in his career. And what's to say if he crossed paths with Andrei Arlovski down the way somehow, previously in his career, if he crossed paths with Andrei Arlovski rather than someone else, who's to know that he wouldn't catch him with one punch and put him down like he was doing to other heavyweights in his career. Moved down to light heavyweight, kept power there. Moved down to middleweight, he's got power there. I like Jared Cannonier. If he lands on your chin clean, it is problems regardless of who you are. He does have a bit of a problem with landing that shot, but I do believe that he belongs up there. Pound for pound power-wise, Jared Cannonier succeeds his middleweight form, and I think he can hang with heavyweights. If he moved back up to heavyweight and tried to fight there again, I reckon he'd still be KOing people. Jared Cannonier, A-tier power, moving on to someone else who is Darren Till, mate. I don't fucking know, mate. I'm gonna have to fucking put him there, mate, yeah. Let's fight, Mike Perry. I'm putting him at D-tier for Darren Till. I might move him up to C-tier. I don't think he's got power in his hands. I'll come to the conclusion of that. I think Stevens could knock down Donald Cerrone. Till couldn't. He had to TKO him. I feel like Till, although has really good flamboyance to his technique and really good precise technique and amazing stuff and the way he throws punches is, he can catch people, but I don't see TKO power. He dropped Whittaker with an elbow. Whittaker got back up. No big deal. All good. Other guys get dropped by Till. They get back up. They're all good. I feel like he hasn't really got that finishing ability because of a lack of power, and I'm going to put him at D tier. He's got a lot of technique, and he's got good cardio as well to go into those later rounds like he did against Robert Whittaker, but I feel like I'm going to have to put him at D tier here. Good power, just nothing ridiculously crazy. Haven't seen any KOs from him, have we? Like, I'd love to sit here and say, hey, you know, like, Darren Till actually should be up with Wonderboy, but Wonderboy's KO'd people. He has. Like, he drops people when they come in at him, and Till kind of doesn't do that. I know he did it to Wonderboy, but like that was behind the ear in the 5th round of a bout. Like, I feel like Wonderboy's got a much higher knockdown ratio, and I don't think Till has that much of crazy power, but I might move him up to C tier by the end of this video. Moving on to someone else who is Davison Figueiredo. I'm going to go F tier. For a flyweight, that is an ultimate compliment. And F might stand for flyweight. Very convenient the way I'm listing these people. Either way, Davis and Figueiredo, you're in the video. Well done, dude. Well, you're in the video. I don't know what else you want me to say. I'm sorry you're at F tier for Figueiredo as well. What do you know? I'm sorry you're at F tier, but you're in the fucking video and you're a flyweight. That should be all you need to know. The guy's got ridiculous power in the flyweight division. Put down Benavidez in the most... But it was the most brutal... I think it was the first 10-7 round I've ever seen in that Joseph Benavidez rematch. I know he choked him out at the end, but every punch he landed was just putting Benavidez down. He's got crazy power. Do I think Volkonovsky could also put down Benavidez? Yes. Putting him in the same tier. Moving on to someone else who is... a legendary Polish baller is Jambalovich. I put him at A tier as well. I think he's got ridiculous power. I think he belongs up here with these guys. I think, again, if he's landing on Arlovski's going to go down. As much as these heavyweights do hit harder, their chins are also a little bit more suspect because of how hard they've been hit throughout their career. I'm putting Jambalovich at A tier. Maybe he's lower down than the Stipe's. Maybe there's 2 tiers to A. There's like the Yazinio, the Dalkows, the Stipe Miocic, and then there's like a Jared Cannonier level, then there's a Prochazka and Jambalovich. Like, I feel like they all belong in the same level, but maybe at different points of the A tier. Either way, he belongs in that range. Moving on to someone else who is Thiago Santos. Again, putting him at A tier. Ridiculous power. Ridiculous power. Ridiculous power. Moving on. We've got Derrick Lewis. I'm putting him at S tier. Maybe the most power in the UFC. One person begs to differ, and he's going to be ready to start looking at him in a second. I'll place him there in a moment, don't you worry about that. But Derrick Lewis, you can't deny he's got top 2 power in the UFC, at least. Top 3, if you really want to make an argument about someone else. Like, top 2 power, 100%. Maybe top 3 if you're counting Roxanne Modafferi, but we're counting the males for now. Definitely Derrick Lewis at S tier. Moving on to someone else who is... Who's this up here? I think this is Masvidal's ear. Yes, it is! I'm so good at that shit. Either way. Masvidal. Oh, yeah, I've got to rank him. C tier. C tier for Masvidal. Nothing crazy. I know he put down Darren Till and put him out cold. I know he put out Ben Askren with a flying knee. But if Leon Edwards sprints across the cage and throws a flying knee at Ben Askren and Ben Askren dips into it at the same time, he's going out cold. It doesn't matter who does that to you, is my point with Masvidal. Masvidal's landing shots on people where damn right it KO'd you. You know what I mean? Like, of course it did. But if he lands shots like fadeaway hooks or straight 1-2s, you don't start to see that power anymore. I'm putting him at C tier. I think he belongs in there with these guys. Maybe he's good at landing a shot that can KO people. But in terms of raw power, putting him at C tier. Moving on to someone else who is Sandhagen. Corey Sandhagen. I'm putting him at F tier. I think he belongs at F tier. Good power. Again, flying knees don't tell me much. Spinning wheel kicks don't tell me much. If you have the skill to land them, good for you. But, like, if anyone lands them, they do stuff to people, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to give too much points on that. But just power-wise, raw ability to generate power, he belongs a part of this. I don't think he's as powerful as Cody Garbrandt for a bantamweight. But I think he's around this level of these guys down here. Not ridiculous power, except if Figueiredo's concerned for his pound-for-pound power-wise. But also good power, enough to keep you at range, enough for you to keep you respectful in the fight. I'm putting Sandhagen at F tier. Moving on to someone else who is Kamaru Usman. I'm going to go with B tier for Oosman. I'm putting him in the mix. I think this got to be done. After that KO against Masvidal, straight 1-2 down the pipe. After that, he KO'd Gilbert Burns with a jab. TKO'd him with a jab. Before that, he put down Colby Covington in the 5th round twice and had good power there in later rounds of a fight. I think you've got to put Oosman at power ranking B tier. You've got to put him there now. Great power shown in his last few fights. Had it earlier in his career, but I guess he just didn't know how to land it without back acne. So now he's got really good ability to land the shots. He's got good strength in the clinch as well. So power-wise, even in his takedowns, his power can be spotted. Speaking of spotted, he's back. Either way, Kamaru Usman, B tier. Good power. Brutal KO over Masvidal. You've got to put him up somewhere high. Moving on to someone else who is Calvin Kattar. I'm putting him at D tier. I think he belongs in the range of these guys. He's got good power, slick power in his hands, combination guy. Landed a good elbow on Jeremy Stephens, don't get me wrong, but just power-wise, he has put down some people. He got a TKO over Shane Burgos. He got a win over Chris Fishgold by TKO as well. A win over Ricardo Lamas by TKO. Just not quite enough. Like, I've seen Poirier land on Holloway, and it rocks him. Calvin Kattar's shots weren't really doing anything to Max Holloway. In fact, Volkonovski's shots kind of have had better effect against Holloway than Kattar's. But either way, Kattar's got slick boxing. He's got good power. Belongs at D tier. Moving on to someone else who is Sugar Sean O'Malley. I'm going to go with D tier for Sean O'Malley. I think he's got good power for his size, man. And for his size, I say that. He's 5'11" at bantamweight, so he kind of carries the power of a featherweight, really. Like, he's got good power in his hands. One-punch KOs in the bantamweight division, just like Cody Garbrandt. I guess maybe lesser competition, but I think if O'Malley lands those kind of shots that Garbrandt did against Rafael Assunção, the results are going to be the same. Darren Till looks less and less like he belongs there. I might move him up to C tier in all honesty, but Sean O'Malley belongs at D tier in my opinion. Good power in his hands. Maybe it's the precision, and we're soon to be aware that he doesn't have all that much power, but the KO rate that he has in the bantamweight division, it's Cody Garbrandt levels. You've got to put him at D tier. Moving on to someone else who is Dustin Poirier. D tier for Dustin, of course. I'm putting him in the same level. I don't think he has that crazy power in his hands, in all honesty. Good power, more volume based, can rock opponents, don't get me wrong. When's the last time Poirier put someone down and they were out? The closest one-punch KOs I can think of in Poirier's career, I would have to say would be Diego Ferreira and Bobby Green. Maybe those two names. Other than that, he's got good power, good volume, but it's the volume that really does the work for Dustin Poirier. I'm going to put him at D tier. Moving on to someone else who is. This is Ngannou. It's Ngannou. S tier. Come on. You knew this. I should have just called this Ngannou and Derrick Lewis tier, in all honesty. You knew this was going to happen. Ridiculous power. 6'4", near enough 6'5" in the heavyweight division. 265 pounds. If he was also 230 pounds, would he hit as hard as he does? Or would he hit more like Stipe? Maybe. But also, you've got to give the points. He's a massive guy. He's landing big shots. Same with Derrick Lewis. They're the two biggest guys in the UFC, maybe outside of Alexander Volkov right now. And they've got ridiculous power, man. S tier for both of them. I'd say Ngannou has more power than Derrick Lewis. But I don't know, man. Lewis puts people out cold, and Ngannou TKO'd Curtis Blades. Like, there's an argument to be made, and I guess we'll find out in due time if they eventually make that fight. We'll see. But Ngannou belongs at S tier, and if he wasn't in S tier, you might as well just terminate my channel right now. Moving on to someone else who is. This is Holloway's ear. No, this is Petr Yan. It's Petr Yan. Moving on. No, I've got to rank Yan. I'm sorry. F tier for Yan. Good power. Good generation, TKOs people, you know what I mean? When Stephens knocks people out, they don't fucking move, you know what I'm saying? But even still, Yan's got good power, dropped Aljamain Sterling. We've seen people drop Aljamain Sterling. It's not that crazy of a feat out of nowhere, but either way, he's got good power in his hands. I'd say around this level of power. This is a good list of people who have equal power to each other. Maybe in terms of punches, Sandhagen doesn't belong with the Volkonovskis or the Yans, but I'd say in combined power of all their extreme abilities, I'm putting them together in one tier. Moving on to someone else who is. Who's this ear down here? It's Josh Emmett. I think C tier. I think C tier for Emmett. I think he's hitting as hard as some of these lightweights, and he's hitting as hard as some of these welterweights. I think that power can translate 100% to KO power in the lightweight division, or knockdown power at least in the lightweight division, like some of these other guys. But I feel like definitely he could maybe have some occasional knockdown power in the welterweight division. Josh Emmett, I think, and I might just be, I don't know, maybe the memes are taking over. I think maybe pound for pound the most powerful fighter ever. One punch flatline KOs in the featherweight division. I think that he's hitting above average more than anyone else is on this video, maybe other than Jared Cannonier, in all honesty. Josh Emmett, C tier. Moving on to someone else who is Justin Gaethje. This makes more sense. I'm putting Justin Gaethje in C tier as well. Knockout power in his hands. Put down Donald Cerrone cleanly, which is something Till couldn't do, even while Cerrone wasn't cutting weight. I'm going to have to put Justin Gaethje down in C tier as well. Good power in his hands. Really good power in his hands. really good power in his hands, and he's the only guy to TKO Tony Ferguson, and that deserves some points in my opinion. So Justin Gaethje, C tier, good power, has had some problems in his career with landing that power earlier in his career when he was a little bit more messy, he used to break guys down a little bit more, but you know, he KO'd Edson Barboza with one punch. He KO'd Donald Cerrone and then finished him off afterwards with a TKO. I'm going to have to go Justin Gaethje at C tier. Moving on to someone else who is Colby Chaos Covington. I think F tier. I think F tier for Covington. I don't think he's got that much power in his hands. And that says something because he was rocking Oosman on occasion in their bout. But I feel like Colby Covington just doesn't have that kind of power in his hands. He's a cardio machine. I think if you put him and Oosman on a running machine, I think he would win that. I think if there was purely a cardio battle, I think Covington would outlast a guy like Oosman, but that's just the difference between having fast twitch muscle fiber and slow twitch muscle fiber. And I think Colby Covington belongs at F tier with these other guys. Maybe I should put him at D tier and not be that disrespectful, but I feel like he just doesn't hit that hard, man. I like Colby Covington, absolute savage, next best guy in the welterweight division outside of Kamaru Usman, but the power isn't there. And maybe if he threw like it, there would be some power. I always hear that argument. But if you could one-punch KO people, you would one-punch KO people. You know what I'm saying? I'm just pointing some things out here. I think Covington belongs at F tier. Maybe at the top of F tier compared to these other lower weight classes. But still F tier in terms of pound-for-pound power. Moving on to someone else who is Max Blessed Holloway. F tier as well. I've made a mistake here. I'm losing someone. I've missed someone. Either way, F tier for Max Holloway. Definitely belongs there. I like Max Holloway, but again, I think it's literally exactly the same situation as Colby Covington. Good volume, good pace, slow twitch muscle fibers, not really putting anyone down. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they put people down. Sometimes they rock people with punches. Other than that, it's got to take a head kick to really hurt someone, or like a spinning back kick or something like that from Holloway. Holloway hasn't got crazy power. F tier for him. Marvin Vettori, I guess we're going to have to put B tier as well. Good power, you can't deny it. Even though he's not KOing people, I think that's basically just him not landing that one perfect punch with someone. He does throw good straight shots. Doesn't really swing too wildly even at times like he does. He is really technical, to be honest with you guys. Lands good straight shots down the pipe. Doesn't put everything behind his shots either. He's very aware that there are 5 rounds. I think if he wanted to really grit down on his shots, he could have similar power to some of these other guys in this division. Maybe Teixeira should be halfway between them. But either way, Marvin Vettori at B tier. And I'm just going to check right now because I know for a fact, I know for a slight fact that maybe, just maybe, I've missed someone out. And I'm going to guess that right now that I've missed someone out because I can smell it. And I'm going to check it right now. And I took a picture of the way I wanted this laid out. I have missed someone. Who have I missed? Oh my god, I put Leon Edwards down there? Alright, maybe then. Maybe I did. Maybe I put Leon Edwards down here. Yeah, I guess, yeah, cool, I'll do that. Let's just fucking ruin Leon Edwards for a second, because he hasn't had enough ruining of his life so far. Let's put him at there. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Moving on to nothing. I'm going. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Please subscribe and like it. These videos mentally torment me for months. I need that to be said before I go. If you're this far in, I care so much about these. I really do. I shouldn't put Leon Edwards there, man. But either way, this picks at where this is actually decreasing my mental health. Doing these kinds of videos because I'm so autistically OCD about things, and I just can't post them because I can't get it perfect. Either way, like and subscribe. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later.